Hello, Micah, and welcome to the AEN Friday, February 5th, 2021 hearing at 1 p.m., our virtual hearing. Today's hearing will include audio and video of remote participants, and it's being streamed live on YouTube. You'll find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website, www.capital.hawaii.gov with an O, capital. And in the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business at 2:15 p.m. on February 8th during our AEN via video conference time slot. And a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. So for testifiers, all testifiers' audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it's your turn to testify. And because of our 90-minute time limit for each of the AEN hearings, there'll be a 2-minute time limit for all testifiers, and we'll have a virtual countdown timer on the Zoom screen. So please be aware of the timer. I'll be announcing only the testifiers who will be providing testimony via Zoom. For the complete list of testifiers, along with all of the written testimony, please go to the legislature's website and you'll find a link on the status page for the measure. And we apologize if the closed captioning does not accurately transcribe the names. So let's get started. We'll start off with SB 219 relating to crimes on agricultural lands. Imposes extended terms of imprisonment for certain offenses against property rights committed on agricultural lands. And first up to testify is James Nakatani from ADC.
Thank you, Chair. Jimmy Nakatani from ADC. I stand on my written testimony as submitted, and I have strong support for this bill. Agricultural crime is a big problem, and it's our area, Whitmore, Waiho area is no different. Thank you.
Okay, and next is Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser from HDOA.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard and committee members. Murakami on behalf of Department of Agriculture. We'll stand on our testimony in support, and we echo Jimmy Nakatani's sentiment about the need for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. And next is Brian Miyamoto from Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Nishihara, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We will stand on a written testimony in support, but Chair, I would like to just highlight a few things from our testimony. I think previously when we talked about the impact to agriculture from ag crimes, we used like $11 million. A 2020 USDA published report now brings it up to $14.4 million. So it's not just theft, it's vandalism, it's trespassing. Farming is tough as it is, so any assistance or increasing the penalty to deter criminals that target agriculture producers, we welcome. Also, we do have a suggested amendment on line 8 and 9. Basically, it discusses the state of mind of the person that is stealing or committing a crime against a farmer. And it quotes, if the person knew or reasonably should have known that the crime was committed on ag land. This clause will require that at the time of the crime, the criminal knew or should have known that the land classification of the property or whether it was primarily used for farming. And we don't know if they would know that. So just something that we wanted to highlight. But again, really appreciate you bringing this bill forward, Chair. Ag crimes are a big issue that farmers have to deal with. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Brian. Members, any questions? Okay. We are moving on to the next measure, Senate Bill 337 relating to sustainable ag, establishes a cover crop reimbursement pilot program to provide up to 100% cost reimbursement to farming operations in the state for acquiring cover crop seeds or green manure. Establishes a cover crop reimbursement pilot program, manager position within the Department of Ag to administer the program, and requires a report to the legislature. And first up, we have Jeff Goodwin from UH.
Yes, CTAR supports the bill and stands by our submitted testimony. No other comments.
Thank you, Jeff. Next is Phyllis Shimabukuro-Geyser from DOA.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Morisata on behalf of the Department of Agriculture. The department's, we will stand on our written testimony, but I wanted to comment that the department feels that the 100% reimbursement may, possibly, should possibly be amended to a lower percentage, because our experience in the past with these types of programs is that when the farmers have a little skin in the game and they feel, they tend to perform better, and the program tends to work better when it's a percentage reimbursement. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Next is Brian Miyamoto from Hawaii Farm Bureau. Your mic, Brian.
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support.
Okay, thank you. And next is Hunter Hevelin from Super Assistance.
Senator Hunter Hevelin is not in the room.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, anyone else on this? No. Members, any questions? Okay, we're moving on to the next one. And that is SB 338 relating to a food hub pilot program. Requires the Department of Ag to establish a 5-year food hub pilot program to increase access to local food, provides for the award of grant funding to qualified applicants wishing to establish or expand a food hub, requires reports to the legislature, and makes an appropriation. 338, first up is Department of Health.
Thank you, Senator Gabbard and members of the committee. I am Lola Irvin, representing Director Elizabeth Char. So thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support. We know that major health authorities, including the USDA, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the World Health Organization, recommends increasing fruit and vegetable intake to prevent chronic disease and preventable conditions. In Hawaii, only 1 in 5 adults meet the minimum recommendations of eating fruits and vegetables 5 servings a day. That's just a minimum. And so we do know that the availability and setting the norm of having fresh fruits and vegetables available does make a difference on people's behavior. And in the pandemic, we saw locally and nationally that local food hubs demonstrated the ability to pivot and shift, meeting the needs of growers and consumers so that fresh, locally grown fruits and vegetables were available. And so the Department of Health, from a public health perspective, provides a testimony and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Department of Ag.
Afternoon, Chair Gabbard. Morisata on behalf of the department, and the department will stand on its written testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Office of Planning is next.
Aloha, happy Aloha Friday, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Danielle Bass, and I am representing the Office of Planning through the State Sustainability Program today. Thank you for hearing this bill. We support this measure, and I do want to stand on our testimony, however, highlight a few things. Recently, during the fall of 2020, during the COVID-19 global pandemic, the Office of Planning's newly established statewide sustainability program held a series of public meetings statewide to update the Hawaii 2050 plan. Through those series of meetings, we heard from the public that there is a strong need to improve Hawaii's local food production and rural community food security, which was very prevalent in nearly every Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Plan public meeting. We know that food hubs may become a more important link in the supply chain to channel more local food to the consumers and institutions of the state. And we at the Office of Planning look forward to supporting the Department of Agriculture through this initiative in these sustainable endeavors to increase Hawaii's food security. Mahalo for hearing this measure. Aloha.
Thank you, Danielle. Good to see you. Next up is UH.
Yeah, Jeff Goodwin again from UH, and UH and CTAR support the intent of the bill and stands by our submitted testimony. No other comments.
Thank you, Jeff. Next is Ming-Wei Ko from the Center for Getting Things Started.
Hi, Senator Gabbard. Ming-Wei Ko is not in the Zoom room.
Thank you, Matt. Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. Brian Miyamoto on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Hawaii Farm Bureau supports SB 338. We are extremely supportive of food hubs. This is a effort to help our small farmers who maybe don't have the infrastructure in place. They're important subset of food value chains. Many of our small operations lack the capacity to access retail, institutional, commercial food service markets on their own, and therefore miss out on some of the opportunities to sell. Again, the pandemic had uncovered some of the gaps that we have in our food systems, and so we're extremely supportive. And I just wanted to note also, per DOH's testimony, that study 1 in 5 adults, I am that 1 in 5 adults that do meet the fruit and vegetable daily requirement. Just wanted to let the community know that I'm the 1 in 5. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Next is Hunter Hevelin from Super Assistance.
Aloha, Chair and committee. I'm Hunter Hevelin, a food systems planner with Super Assistance and a longtime supporter and actually employee of Food Hub here on Oahu. Food hubs have arisen as a critical means of supporting a diversity of smallholders across the state to access new markets, and strongly would like to see this program come into existence. I know that there was an appropriation previously committed or rather written in, and we'd be open to seeing this switched over to potentially a CIP approach going forward, as we understand that the budget is limited, and that's at least with some discussion of a few of the food hubs over the past few days as the situation continues to develop, as it always does rapidly at the legislature. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Hunter. Okay, members, any questions? Okay, moving on to Senate Bill 346 relating to farm animals, requires farm owner or operators to confine egg-laying hens in accordance with the standards established in this measure, effective December 31st, 2025, prohibits a business owner or operator from selling shell eggs or egg products that are produced by egg-laying hens that were confined in a cruel manner. Okay, so first up is Department of Ag.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard. Murakami for the department. The department opposes this measure and will stand on its written testimony, but would like to highlight a significant concern that the measure still includes criminal penalties, and that's a serious concern that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Next is UH.
Jeff Goodwin again with CTAR, and we support the intent of this bill, but we stand by our testimony that's been submitted about some of our concerns about the bill too. So, and that's about all I'll say right now, unless there's any questions later.
Mahalo, Jeff. And next is Josh Balk with the Humane Society of the U.S.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the Humane Society in favor of SB 346. SB 346 is the result of egg producers and humane advocates listening, providing insights, and working together for the betterment of a more economically viable and humane future. This bill will ensure that by 2026, eggs produced and sold in Hawaii come from housing systems that meet the egg industry's own cage-free guidelines. Again, standards written by the egg industry itself. There's a small farm exemption, and it ensures the standard is followed no matter where the eggs are produced. As the committee may recall, last year we testified side by side with egg producers on virtually identical bill. We know the future of the egg industry is cage-free. We also understand that the transition to cage-free can't happen overnight. For this reason, the timeline for implementation was moved to 2026 at the request of the egg producers. The bill closely mirrors laws that were passed in California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Michigan, and Massachusetts. Many other states have egg industry endorsed bills pending this year. Though it's worth noting, this bill would be the longest phase-in period of any of the states. The legislative trend aligns with the food industry's demand for producers to move away from caging chickens. In fact, more than 200 of the world's top grocery, fast food, restaurant companies, many of which have locations in Hawaii, are switching to only using cage-free eggs. Here's why there's so much attention on the issue. Hens confined in barren wire cages are given less space per bird than a standard sheet of paper. They're unable even to spread their wings. Cage-free housing allows the birds to engage in basic natural behaviors like walking around, perching, scratching, dust bathing, and laying eggs in a nest. Thank you for considering and hopefully supporting again the egg industry's cage-free trajectory, which improves the lives of the birds and sets producers up nicely to flourish and have sustainable success. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, next we have Lindsey Verhileg. Sorry about that if I mispronounced it, with the Humane Society of the U.S.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Lindsey Verhileg, and I am the Hawaii State Director of the Humane Society of the United States. I would like to reinforce our strong support for Senate Bill 346. First, I would like to thank the committee for its strong record on protecting animals. Last year, this committee unanimously passed legislation nearly identical to this bill, and that legislation was then approved unanimously by the entire Senate. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19 delays, there was not enough time to pass it through the House. As the Hawaii State Director, it is my honor to work in my home state again with Hawaii lawmakers, advocates, and businesses to find consensus on ways that we can help animals. One such business is Villa Rose. Currently, Villa Rose has 4 cage-free barns in Waialua. If this bill passes, Villa Rose will move forward with fulfilling their $100 million investment in construction of 24 additional cage-free barns. This will create jobs for construction workers, electricians, excavators, engineers, farm workers, and higher tech jobs in processing plants and more. Villa Rose also pledged to create a much needed local feed mill here on the island, not just for their chickens, but for farmers across the entire state. However, to move forward with these investments and others by producers, Villa Rose and the egg industry need certainty. SB 346 provides that certainty by creating a business-friendly regulatory framework, which will allow the company to invest millions of dollars in upgraded production facilities. I'm joined today by 2 of my expert colleagues, one of whom you just heard from, Josh Falk and Dr. Sarah Shields, to share additional details about the bill. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Mahalo, Lindsey. Next up is Sarah Shields with the Humane Society International.
Chair, members of the committee, I'm Dr. Sarah Shields. I'm an ethologist or animal behavior scientist. I studied at the University of California at Davis, and I am now Director of Farm Animal Welfare Science at Humane Society International. In my role, I work with food corporations, academics, financial institutions, governments, and farmers all over the world, and I support this bill strongly. I also supplement my written testimony with 3 short points. First, animals have deeply ingrained biological drives to express certain types of natural behavior, and this is well documented in the science. For example, a hen needs a perch for roosting at night, she needs a secluded nest box for egg laying, and she needs loose litter for pecking, scratching, and dust bathing, and without these resources, her welfare is poor. As the science has advanced, animal housing systems are changing to better accommodate these behavioral needs. The egg industry has the farm designs, the veterinary knowledge, and the experience to make these systems work well and successfully implemented around the world. In fact, the very requirements of this legislation come from the industry's own science-based guidelines. Finally, consumers have strong beliefs about animal welfare issues. People care about where their food comes from and the way society views our relationship to animals and our responsibilities to them is getting stronger. Cages are simply no longer accepted. Over the past decade, it's become obvious that the future is cage-free. The egg industry well recognizes the scientific and technical advances and their consumers' own expectations. This legislation is similar to the laws passed and the legislation pending on this issue throughout the country. It's a viable path forward. I respectfully ask legislators to support the advancement of this important issue. So thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Please call on me to answer any questions about hen behavior or the technical details about cage-free housing systems. Thank you very much.
Mahalo, Sarah. Next is Hunter Hevelin.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Again, just in support of this bill, but also to contextualize it a little bit more broadly, there's a long, well-documented link between poor animal husbandry and crises of human public health. And I think that this bill, for all of the good reasons to support it in terms of animal welfare, that also thinking about it in terms of our environmental health and the density of nutrient outputs that these types of facilities are responsible for, and then even more broadly in terms of public health and public human health, in terms of the contagion transfers that have arisen out of many of these types of facilities. This is an important bill to support to preserve environmental, animal, and public health. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter. Next up is Iris Shimabukuro from the Hawaiian Egg Company.
As this bill is written, we do oppose the bill. Now, having said that, it is our goal to include cage-free production. That's our goal. We have started. But overall, we are in favor of letting the consumer, the market, and us as business owners dictate when and at what pace to convert. Again, we're not opposed to it, but we would like to have more say as to when we actually do it. I would like you to consider that the cost to convert is substantial. A lot has gone on in a year, and we did agree to that timeline a year ago, but it was a COVID year. And last year, we estimated that it would be about $800 to $1,000 to $1 million for us to convert. That was our cost. A year has gone by. And by the way, what we're going to do is clear out our existing homes and put in new equipment. A year has gone by, and the cost is going to be 3 times that. 3 times that. And so that is a huge financial burden for us. And it doesn't help, only 10% of the eggs sold in the state of Hawaii is local. The other 90% is mainland, and it is because of cost. Now, having said that, again, our goal is to convert to cage-free, but we don't like that timeline. We could agree to a 10-year period where it's tiered. The phase-in period is phased in. And so we could agree to that. I have presented that to the Humane Society. And so that's something that we're going to discuss further. Again, we just need more time, but as the bill is written at that timeline, we cannot support it, but open to negotiation.
Thank you, Iris. Okay. That's it on the testimony. Members, any questions? Senator Ocasio?
Chair Gabbard, I just had one, I guess, question for folks in making the amendments. That 10,000, farms with 10,000 hens seems really high. And I guess my suggestion or question would be to lower that amount, or look at what the implications of lowering that amount would be to like 1,000 hens or something like that.
Thank you. Any other questions, members?
I have a question.
Senator Nishihara.
Yeah, this is a question to Ms. Kaiser, not Kaiser, but what was her name, the woman just before?
Shimabukuro, Iris.
Yeah, Shimabukuro, right. Is she there?
I am.
I have a question. For smaller egg producers, like the ones you find that are sold, the local eggs that are sold in places like Don Quixote and places like that. And what are the sizes of their chicken population that they have egg laying?
I can tell you, and I can speak to the prior, and I'm sorry, I can see Senator Laura. I can speak to your question as well. I don't exactly know. I know that the Petersons have 10,000 birds. And the reason, I'll start there. And the reason we did that is because if it was less than 10,000, the bill would put them out of business. The cost to convert is substantial. With us, again, it's multi-seven figures. It's very high. And so we wanted to keep, I suggested it and they agreed. So it wouldn't put them out of business. That's it. That's the reason. And there are only, out of the producers, we do the most in terms of selling to grocery stores. And I believe Miley Moa is next. The Petersons, they're primarily, it's off of their farm and they sell to some restaurants in their area. So yeah. So, but we're also, there's only 4 of us. It's very small. Used to be 62. We're down.
I know there used to be more.
Down.
And yeah, I know the cost of feed and energy costs and everything else. It's a pretty tight margin, I would imagine, to produce eggs and make any profit at all. And when you have to do renovations to make it cage-free, according to what the bill is asking for, unless you have a fairly large operation, I would imagine that it would be very daunting if you want to continue to have family farms that do this. And so I have concerns about the bill myself. So I don't know if the way it's structured, the bill is structured, given the timelines that allows for and what's expected, that it's doable in the sense that local farmers will still continue to produce at a price point that they can continue to operate.
May I speak to that?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Let me first say that what I suggested to the Humane Society was at 2026, we will be at 20% cage-free. 2027, we'd be at 40%. A year later, 60%. A year later, 80%. And at the end of basically it's 10 years, we'd be 100%. Now, mind you, it's still a lot of money, but we don't have that in the bank. We have to borrow it. We would have to borrow all that money. So, but part of it is the market does dictate that. And we want to do it. We understand that it is the right thing to do. But I can tell you now, we don't treat our birds badly. And we're subject to, if you saw and we're highly regulated. We're very, very highly regulated. And part of our farm is, and we are certified organic, so is our facility. So we have more inspections than any other egg producer in the state. So we are certainly doing our best. And it is our goal to be cage-free. But 5 years, especially after a COVID year, is a lot of money. And so we want to do it. We just need more time. And since it was brought up, and I did say it last year, unlike most businesses where labor is the #1 expense, our #1 expense is feed. It represents 45% of our expenses. And by the way, 50% of that is freight. And that's why mainland eggs are so much cheaper. They are shipping in something that's a carton of eggs. We're shipping in tons of feed to feed our birds. And that's why the cost difference is there. We're just asking for more time. We can support the bill. with, basically the 10 years as I laid it out. We can, well, we will do it. But not 5 years. It's still a lot.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions? I have a question for Josh Balk. There, Josh?
Hello, Senator.
Josh, my question is, was the Department of Ag consulted on this bill? And how do we address the department's concerns on criminal penalties and enforcement?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting with the Department of Ag. This is the first we heard there was a concern at the meeting. There wasn't said to be of a concern. Related to the major concern they brought up regarding it being a criminal statute, it is not a criminal statute. Last year, it was going into the session, but we got feedback from the Department of Ag and others, and we listened and we removed it even last year. And so, Senator, this year, just like last year, there is no criminal part of the statute.
Okay. And then what egg producers are already cage-free?
Our understanding is that there are four producers who are active and will be 5. And of those, one operator fits the mark in terms of being below the small family farm exemption. The next producers, other 3, are either all cage-free or going to be cage-free soon. And there's one operator who is asking for more time to convert to cage-free. And Senator,
go ahead.
Senator, one more point regarding the feed. A feed is, of course, the issue in agriculture in Hawaii. It is worth noting that Villa Rose has said publicly in meetings that if this bill passes, that it will put up a feed mill in Hawaii. However, there has to be the certainty of this bill passing for it to do it, for it to go from the 4 barns that it has up now to the 24 barns and the expansion of its work on the island to bring more jobs, more labor, more future investment in the state, and the certainty of this standard in place and a certainty of this timeline in place is what they have asked for in order to move forward with the feed mill and all the other activities related to construction.
I see. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on to Senate Bill 361. A general excise tax food exemption provides a general excise tax exemption for certain food or food ingredients. First up is Isaac Choi from the Department of Taxation.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, Senators. Josh Michaels on behalf of the Director. We'll stand on our testimony or offering comments.
Thank you. Next is Tom Yamachika from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Senator Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We have written testimony prepared as well. The primary concern that we have is that it has never been easy to distinguish between groceries and prepared food. Many states have tried to tackle the problem. California, for example, has pages and pages of regulations on how to do this. The definition that's in the bill now, I think, is exceedingly complex. If it's desired to move forward with this, there should be, I think, a substantial commitment of resources toward getting something like the California regulations in place for Hawaii and educating the public on this and of course, enforcement.
Thank you, Tom. Next up is Lauren Zerbo from the Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Hi, this is Alexis Chapman from HFIA. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. And Chair, thank you for introducing this measure. We are in strong support. Just to highlight a couple points from our testimony. As most of you know, Hawaii has the highest cost of living of any state. The economic crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic hit us harder than any other state. And we are one of the only states where consumers pay taxes on groceries. Food is a major expense for Hawaii families. According to 2019 USDA data, a thrifty food plan for a family of 4 in Hawaii costs $1,176 a month. The same plan for the national average was $654 a month. This helps really illustrate how much higher our cost of living is here, but it also shows that even thrifty families in Hawaii are not getting the same amount back from the food excise tax credit as they're spending on grocery taxes. The high cost of living here is a constant topic of conversation, and each year we see a lot of different bills to try and address one facet of it or another. This bill is a comprehensive solution to actually bring down the cost of living right away as soon as it's implemented. And just to address the concerns of the previous testifier a little bit, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program has products are already in or out of that program as being prepared or unprepared. So using SNAP as a guideline for what products could be included is an easy way to do that. And if the committee would like assistance in creating other language, we'd of course be happy to assist with that to determine what is or is not prepared foods. And thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available for questions.
Mahalo, Alexis. Next is Randy Pereira from HGEA.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Michelle Kurihara-Klein on behalf of Randy Pereira and the Hawaii Government Employees Association. You have our written testimony before you, so I will not belabor the points. But I do want to be sure to point out that we are raising very grave concerns and opposition about what we're considering tax leakage. Now is not the time to concede needed tax revenue, and we cannot afford piecemeal legislation without considering the total financial picture. Without a comprehensive plan, the state will be forced to significantly increase taxes or worse, create new taxes in order to have a balanced budget. And therefore we raise concerns, and I would be available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian Miyamoto from Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. Brian Miyamoto, on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We stand on our written testimony in support. I just do want to highlight one part, Chair. The definition of food, food that is only cut, repackaged, or pasteurized by the seller, or raw eggs, fish, meat, poultry, or foods containing these raw animal foods requiring so on, may exclude taro and ulu, both which are steamed and then repackaged. And so with the committee's consideration, we would hope that we'd look at that and maybe also have those foods included in the definition, because based on the definition currently in the bill, we're not sure if those would qualify for the GT exemption, critically important crops in Hawaii.
Okay, thank you, Brian. All right, any members, any questions? All right, moving on to Senate Bill 479, relating to ag production, requires the Department of Ag to collaborate with ag growers and researchers to develop and implement a program to safely distribute disease and insect-free tropical plant materials to Hawaii farmers and appropriate funds. First up is Department of Taxation. No, excuse me. First up is Department of Ag.
Aloha kalamai, Chair. This is Makana Paris with the Hawaii Worker Stabilization Fund, wishing to testify on the previous measure, if that is permissible at this time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Aloha, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Nishihara, Senators Akasi and Favela. On behalf of Managing Director T. George Paris of the Hawaii Worker Stabilization Fund, we support SB 361. Working families are financially drowning today. SB 361 envisions a way in which we can provide them with worker relief, especially the most vulnerable. And we wish you well and applaud you for taking up such relief legislation as you deliberate how best to support our state and support our working families during these times. Mahalo, and you have a wonderful, happy Aloha Friday.
Thank you, Makana. Okay, getting back to 479. Let's see, where did we leave off? Morris?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard. The department will stand on its written testimony in opposition, and offering comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. Next is Brian Miyamoto from Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bill stands on its written testimony and support. We appreciate bringing some focus to our nursery industry. During the pandemic, a lot of focus was on food security and the food sector in agriculture, but our nursery industry was hit very hard. They've got a lot of issues. One that's recently come up is the ornamental red ginger. And if we lose our nursery industry, we'll start importing more and then bringing in more invasive species. So we appreciate you hearing this measure and we ask for your support.
Thank you. All right, members, any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next measure, and it's Senate Bill 493, establishing the Hawaii Agriculture and Forest Carbon Positive Incentive Program. And first up is Department of Taxation.
Thank you, Chair. The department will stand on its written testimony, offering comments.
Thank you. Next is Department of Ag.
Thank you. The department will stand on its testimony expressing concerns about the implementation of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris. David Smith with DLNR.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. This is David Smith. I'm the administrator with the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. The department stands on its written testimony and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next is Gwen Lau with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. HGIA stands on its written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Bass with Office of Planning.
Aloha again, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Office of Planning supports the intent of SB 493, offers comments on this measure specific to the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force. We wanted to highlight those comments. So in our testimony, we've explained that since 2017, the OP has provided administrative support to the Carbon Farming Task Force via Act 33, 2017. That task force evolved into 1 year later to the state's Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force through the enactment of Act 15, 2018. The Office of Planning did request some funding for staffing and staff support of that task force, as well as financial support for that task force. The task force is codified in HRS 225P-4 of the Hawaii Climate Change Mitigation Adaptation Initiative chapter. Since 2018, the Office of Planning has not been provided funding to provide staff support and has struggled with providing administrative support to the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force. We have noted this need for additional staffing and funding to support the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force's work over the past 3 years. Due to this historical lack of funding of the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force, the Office of Planning is now providing temporary administrative staff support to the task force with the recent onboarding of an AmeriCorps Vista member. We will be holding a Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force meeting this month on February 16th. And we do note that the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force has a reporting requirement due in December 2022. I've included the requirement of the law in our testimony. We are actively working on sustainable development and climate resilience planning and coordination for the state. We are committed to this supporting the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force and their important role. However, OP would appreciate similar barrel tax funding as described in this bill to help financially support and employ staff support for the Greenhouse Gas Sequestration Task Force, as well as the Office of Planning's work on sustainability and climate adaptive planning and coordination. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Danielle. Next is Tom Yamachika for the Tax Foundation of Hawaii.
Thank you, Chair. Tom Yamachika from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Our primary concern is the earmark on the barrel tax. We understand that there is a nexus between the proposed funding and the funding source. However, we think it's a better practice to fund it using the state's normal budgetary processes to make sure that all of the state's priorities are considered. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Next is Henry Curtis from Life of the Land.
Senator Gabbard, Henry Curtis is not in the Zoom room at this time.
Thank you. Hunter Heveland from Supersistence.
Well, Senators, I would like to just offer a couple comments and stand on my pre-existing testimony in support for this bill's intent, especially to facilitate the adoption of regenerative agricultural practices and facilitate agrobiodiversification on farm landscapes across the state. We know that that is a critical aspect both of supporting environmental health, but also in mitigating climate change and focusing and facilitating carbon sequestration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hunter. Okay. Members, any questions? Moving on. Senate Bill 512 relating to SNAP's incentives. It removes the $10 per visit per day cap on the dollar-for-dollar match received by SNAP beneficiaries under the Hawaii Healthy Food Incentive Program, also known as the Double Up Food Bucks Program. It specifies that healthy proteins are eligible purchases under the program, makes an appropriation to the Department of Ag to expand funding for the program. First up is the Department of Health.
Thank you, Senator Gabbard and members of the committee. I am Lola Irvin, representing Director Libby Char for the Department of Health. The department supports SB 512 and increasing and lifting the $10 per day cap and adding healthy proteins to the program. We know that food costs in Hawaii are 82% higher than the national average. And so the Double Up Food Bucks program has actually then increased the accessibility of food. And then, in the time of the pandemic, this has been incredibly important so that what we have found in an evaluation study was that between 2018 and 2020, the number of all SNAP participating households in Hawaii with access to Double Up Food Bucks retailers near their homes increased by 272%. And so this program has provided availability and access, and SB 512 strengthens it even more, especially for people in Hawaii who have been facing food scarcity. So thank you very much for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Okay, mahalo. Next up is Department of Ag.
Thank you, Chair Gabbard. The department will stand on its testimony in support. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is UHCTAR.
CTAR supports the general intent of this bill, and we stand by our submitted testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up is Hawaii Food Industry Association.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Alexis Chapman for HFIA. We're in strong support of this measure. The Double Up Food Bucks program is important both as a means to support healthy eating and as a way to support Hawaii's agricultural sector. Food insecurity in our state right now is at unprecedented levels. And at the same time, the local agricultural sector has suffered disproportionate economic losses in this economic crisis. Now is the ideal time to expand this program, and removing the $10 per visit cap is a very simple way to make sure that Hawaii families and Hawaii farmers can maximize the benefits of the Double Up Food Bucks initiative. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Don Weisman from American Heart Association.
I'm Don Weisman, I'm Government Relations Director and Communications Director for the American Heart Association Hawaii Division, and we are in strong support of this bill. My written testimony outlines the many reasons why this bill is needed and how this program has been successful to our state. I just want to highlight that the last budget cycle, the state invested $100,000, and through matching grants, we were able to increase that to $2 million. So it was a 20% return on investment. So important to consider that, even though we have tough budget times. The one area that I did want to bring to your attention is in section 2B, and we recommend an amendment to that section. It allows for the addition of healthy proteins and at the determination of the retailers who participate in the program, determining what healthy proteins are. But I think it would be better to define healthy proteins here, because not all proteins are actually healthy. And I've put in my testimony some examples from the American Heart Association's guidelines on proteins that can be healthy and others that can actually increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. So I think you need to better define what healthy proteins are if we're going to incentivize eating those types of things, because we don't want people to overeat bad foods that will add to their chronic disease risks. Mahalo.
Thank you, Don. Next is Micah Municata from Ulupono Initiative.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Nishihara, and members of the committee. My name is Micah Municata, speaking on behalf of the Ulupono Initiative. Just wanted to first thank this committee and Chair for hearing this measure. It's an extremely important measure. Truly do appreciate the legislature's leadership in passing this particular program in 2019. It has proven to be a very successful program since its inception. It is housed within the Department of Ag, and it is Department of Ag partners with the Hawaii Food Basket to bring out this incentive that really benefits not just the needy who are in need of food, but also a local farmer and rancher. This bill in particular removes the $10 cap and adds healthy proteins. It's an ask from those that have been involved and with this particular program that, opening up the program for community need. I think that we can agree that this pandemic has allowed a lot of conversations to start between the local producer and the community, and a lot stronger connection to that local food source. This type of program continues to grow that. What we've seen so far, and you have our written testimony, Chair, there's a lot of data points and stats at the back of it that we attached, but basically we've seen how this incentive kind of started in January 2020 with just under $10,000 and spent towards this incentive, and then coming to December where it's over about $165,000 into this incentive. So it's quite an important program. Did want to state that while this measure does have some general fund appropriations to it, we understand that the economic situation we're facing in the state is difficult. So as such, if this committee wants to move this bill forward along with any future ones, there are quite a bit of policy related issues that can move this program forward, even if funding is not available. So we want to mention that, if funding is the reason to say, kill the bill in the future, we ask that the policy remain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Micah. Next is Jalen Murakami from the Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Aloha, Chair Gabbard, Vice Chair Nishihara, and members of the committee. My name is Jalen Murakami. I'm with Hawaii Public Health Institute, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony in strong support for SB 512, which would provide continued funding for the Hawaii Healthy Food Incentive Program, also known as Double Up Food Bucks or the Bucks. And like the previous testifiers mentioned, it also expands the program by removing the daily $10 cap and expanding to healthy protein options. So we stand on our written testimony, but I just wanted to emphasize how the Double Up Food Bucks program, which provides the dollar for dollar match on fresh locally grown produce for SNAP participants, has been really a critical program during this time of economic and public health crisis. This triple win program is feeding hungry families healthy foods, which is critical during the pandemic when chronic disease increases your risk for severe cases of COVID-19. It also supports local agriculture and keeps food dollars in our local economy. SNAP itself is a program that, is proven to stimulate the economy during economic downturns, and the food dollars are often spent quickly because they're for necessities. So again, wanted to reiterate our support for this program and appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bureau stands on its written testimony and support. We won't go and speak on the benefits that you heard previously to the program. We want to talk about the addition of proteins or healthy proteins We're excited. We believe that they should be included in healthy proteins. We believe our ranchers, our livestock producers, our fishers, our egg producers, and even dairy. So we hope consideration would be to keep that in, and if a definition is to be included, that it would include many of the egg producers that produce protein here in the state of Hawaii. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Brian. Next is Peggy Mirzwa with the Aloha Care.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Aloha Care stands in strong support of this measure. And as many of the previous testifiers had mentioned, it's been such an important program for our community in the past year. And it also has shown such great community support, pulling in so many funders and really amplifying the money that the state first put in. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and we are here if you have any questions.
Thank you. And next is Dexter Kashida.
Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair and Committee. I stand in strong support of this. Any way we can utilize federal funds to support our local ag industry, both produce and meats, would be absolutely great. On the city and county side, that's our intent, to utilize more federal funds to support our ag sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Dexter. Next up is Hunter Hevelin.
Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. I'd like to stand on my written testimony in support and also add that this period has been, at least based on my research, the largest incidence of public feeding support in the history of these islands. And we are not out of the woods at this point. And so funding for this mechanism, for this program to both reduce household food insecurity and increase farm sales is the perfect example of a double subsidy win that, should any resources be available, should be applied. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Hunter. Members, any questions? As a side note, there were 108 testimonies in support and 0 in opposition. And for those, again, a reminder, if you submitted written testimony, you'll be able to go to the website and see it online. Next up is Senate Bill 579, relating to special purpose revenue bonds to assist the House of Aloha Enterprises, LLC. Authorizes the issuance of SPURBs to assist them with planning, designing, constructing, and equipping facilities for the manufacturing and processing of certain products. And let's see. First up is Melvin Mason from the House of Aloha Enterprises.
Hi, Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, community members of the Senate, and I greatly appreciate giving this opportunity. In fact, I would like to say good morning. I'm in Sweden at the moment of time. At this time, it's about 1 a.m. in the morning. Like to really mahalo you folks for giving this opportunity to share this, because, you know, I would like to stand with my sharing of my testimony that I've written, but I wanted to add a few comments. I'm concurrently here in Sweden, actually expanding to share the values of Hawaii made goods, literally. I already have interests in stores and storefronts, and the reason to and how we designed the company. We actually are also currently opening up a location in the Haleiwa Town Center as we speak. The concept for us is really supporting and developing more in creating added value in product making, manufacturing in Hawaii. You know, like countries like Japan, you know, pretty much they're all export market. You know, in the 70s, in 10 years, they made, you know, the highest, second largest economy in the world. For us, and we're not really looking to shoot for that for it, but the thing that we'd like to actually help to improve is that with through the FTZ zones and the systems, as you know, they were shared recently, like last year or the year before, there was about $800 million of goods being exported out of Hawaii, but $3 billion worth of goods is being imported into Hawaii. So we wanted to really look and concentrate to how we can actually expand the exporting of Hawaii made goods literally everywhere. Part of which, on my way back to Hawaii in about a month, I'm going to be in Oregon and Washington State. I have a few meetings there with grocery stores. Part of the concepts too is also where, you know, like the grocery stores having the Oriental aisle. We're actually we've already designed and characterized things calling it the Hawaiian aisle. So it's the AISLE and also the ISLE. So there's two types of aisles that we actually have designed, and we have a lot of people that are actually very interested. Thank you very much. Mahalo.
Any questions? All right, moving on to the final measure on today's agenda, SB 668, relating to ag. This measure renames the Agricultural Development and Food Security Special Fund as the Land, Aquaculture, Freshwater, or Sea-Based Food Development and Food Security Special Fund, and expands the scope of the special fund to include land, aquaculture, freshwater, or sea-based food production. First up is Department of Ag.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard. The department has some strong concerns about the inclusion of commercial fisheries in this measure. The regulation of fisheries is overseen by NOAA, and there's some involvement for freshwater fish by the Department of Aquatic Resources over at DLNR. So we've expressed those concerns in our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have the Hawaii Farm Bureau. Brian?
Thank you, Chair. The Hawaii Farm Bureau will stand on its written testimony in support.
Okay. All right, members, any questions? Senator Ocasio.
So I guess this might go to Brian Miyamoto, but it could be general ask anyway. I guess the concern is just like with the Department of Ag about fishing. I guess the question would be how much of the fish that is consumed in state versus exported? And with this, so then the intent of the bill feels really good, but then when adding the fisheries, will it lead to overfishing, especially in relation to export? So kind of trying to get a gauge of how much is for export versus for actual sustainability for our, to be consumed on islands.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. And we're not the authors of the bill. We believe that it covers and expands. We believe aquaculture is an important component, but based on the department's testimony, aquaculture is already covered in the barrel tax as a allowable expense. So as far as for the fishers, I can't speak to exactly what the percentage of the export versus local consumption. We do hear those concerns, and we just felt comfortable with the expansion of what we believe this bill would include more, like with sea-based food, maybe some other products that are agricultural or aquaculture related that the barrel tax would be able to fund. We do think it's critically important that barrel tax does fund local production and our local farmers and ranchers. So again, we do support it. We believe that it would expand DOA's authority, but we don't want to impact our local growers and our local production here in Hawaii.
That raises another question, I don't know, would be how much of the barrel tax then is going to fulfill the legislative intent of the law, and how much then is going to the general fund. But anyway, okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? All right, members, we will go into decision-making now. Thank you. And mahalo to all the testifiers. Reconvening the 1 p.m. AEN hearing on February 5th, 2021. Having conferred with the members of the committee, we've come up with some decision-making, and we'll go through the bills. SB 219, the chair's recommendation, huge problem, members, as you well know, is, for our struggling farmers. But the chair's recommendation would be to pass this measure with an amendment suggested by the Farm Bureau, will delete the following clause on page 1, lines 8 to 10. Quote, if the person knew or reasonably should have known that the crime was committed on agricultural land, unquote. As the Farm Bureau noted in their testimony, quote, we believe that it would be impossible and unnecessary to prove that the criminal had this knowledge. How would he, without access to detailed land classification maps, a land survey, county and state tax records, etc.? Okay, so any comments? I will go ahead and take. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Sure. So I know this goes to JDC next. I'm going to vote straight up yes, but there may actually be some technical problems, some legal technical problems with that. So just FYI at this point, but I'll vote yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carl. So I'll take the vote, members. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara? Clarence, you there?
Aye. Aye. Yeah.
Thank you. Senator Ocasio?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
No.
Okay. Everybody? Yeah, the measure passes. Okay, the next one is Senate Bill 337 relating to sustainable ag and cover crops. Members, I realize it's a long shot because this bill has a general fund appropriation, but improving soil health is the foundation of good ag. So the chair's recommendation would be to pass SB 337 with amendments that were suggested by the Department of Ag. On page 3, section D, line 7 will change the cost incurred for cover crop seeds or green manure purchased reimbursement percentage from 100% to 75% to be more in line with past reimbursement programs. On page 3, section E, lines 10 to 13 will update the language to the semicolon in line 13 to read, quote, the department shall convene a review panel comprising of knowledgeable representatives from industry organizations, College of Tropical Ag and Human Resources, and the Department of Ag to screen and rate applicants on the quality and appropriate use of their cover crops and green manure practices. The department shall then aggregate the total reimbursement applications pursuant to the section and distribute the available monies on a ranking scale from highest to lowest as determined by the review panel. And this is so that applicants will be screened and rated on the quality of their cover crop and green manure practices. And also there's some tech amendments. Any comments? Okay, I'll take the vote. The chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara?
Aye.
Senator Ocasio?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
Measure passes. Thank you, members. Moving on to 338, relating to the Food Hub Pilot Program, requiring the Department of Ag to establish a 5-year Food Hub Pilot Program to increase access to local food, provides for the award of grant funding to qualified applicants wishing to establish or expand a food hub, and requires reporting to the legislature. Okay, members, the recommendation will be to pass SB 338 with amendments. We'll add a section 5 to insert a $1.5 million appropriation of general obligation bonds for the Honalo Marshalling Yard in fiscal year 21 to 22. We'll also add appropriate language to authorize the Director of Finance to issue the GO bonds and accompanying language related to the lapsing of the funds. These funds should be expended by the Department of Ag. And there are some tech amendments. Any comments? Okay, the chair will take the vote. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara?
Aye.
Senator Ocasio?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
Thank you, members. The measure passes. Moving on to Senate Bill 346 relating to egg-laying hens and confinement standards. Members, 3 of the 4 local egg producers are cage-free or mostly cage-free. This bill is a step forward for the humane treatment of hens, and it will also give the egg industry certainty in terms of long-term investments. So the chair's recommendation will be to pass SB 346 with tech amendments. Any comments? Chair votes aye. Senator and Vice Chair Nishihara.
Reservations.
Senator Ocasio.
Aye.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Thank you, members. The measure passes. Moving on to SB 361 relating to the general excise tax exemption for certain food or food ingredients. Chair's recommendation on this measure will add some amendments that were suggested by DOTAX. And to simplify, this bill will exempt from GET any amount a taxpayer receives for sale of food items which are covered by the USDA by their federal food stamps program. This will level the playing field so that the exemption will apply to all affected taxpayers, regardless of the tax year that they follow. The date change will also give DOTAX time to make their necessary changes to their forms, instructions, and computer systems, and will also make the bill effective January 1st, 2022. Any comments? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara?
Aye.
Senator Ocasio?
Reservations.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
Thank you, members. The measure passes. Moving on to SB 479 relating to ag production, tropical flowers, and foliage, requiring the Department of Ag to collaborate with agricultural growers and researchers to develop and implement a program to safely distribute disease and insect-free tropical plant materials to Hawaii farmers. Members, the chair's recommendation will be to pass SB 479 with amendments. Taking the suggestion in Department of Ag's testimony, will amend the bill to require Department of Ag to create additional regulations in HAR 4-70 by January 1st, 2023, to specify the plant species and varieties that would need additional regulations, thereby creating the quarantine requirements, diagnostic measures, and import requirements.
I need to correct my.
And there's also some tech amendments. Any comments? Okay, I'll take the vote. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara.
Aye.
Senator Ocasio?
I'm sorry, I actually have reservations on this one, and I apologize, Chair Gabbard, that I vote aye on the previous 361. I was just a little bit off.
Okay, all right.
My apologies.
Thank you. Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
And Senator Favela?
Aye.
Thank you, members. The measure passes. Moving on to SB 493. That's where we are. The relating to ag, establishing the Hawaii Ag and Forest Carbon Positive Incentive Program, appropriating funds. Members, this bill envisions an innovative program to incentivize carbon sequestration. So the chair's recommendation will be to pass SB 493 with an amendment that was suggested by DOTAX. Will make the effective date of Section 5 be postponed until January 1st, 2022, and this will allow sufficient time to make amendments. Any comments? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara.
Aye.
Senator
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
The measure passes. Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 512, relating to the SNAPS program, the incentives. Chair's recommendation will be to pass SB 512 with tech amendments. Any comments? Chair votes aye. Senator Vice Chair Nishihara?
Aye.
Senator Ocasio?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
The measure passes. Thank you, members. Moving on to SB 579, related to special purpose revenue bonds, assisting the House of Aloha Enterprises, LLC. Chair's recommendation will be to pass SB 579 with an amendment that was suggested by the bill's introducer, Senator Riviere, to clarify that this SPURB will be for activities conducted in Hawaii. Any comments? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara?
Aye.
Senator Ocasio?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
Thank you, members. The measure passes. And then finally, SB 668 relating to ag, Department of Ag, Land Aquaculture, renames the Agriculture Development and Food Security Special Fund as the Land Aquaculture Freshwater or Sea-Based Food Development and Food Security Special Fund, and expands the scope of the special fund to include land, aquaculture, freshwater, or sea-based food production. Members, the chair's recommendation will be to pass SB 668 as is. Any comments? Hearing none, the chair votes aye. Vice Chair Nishihara.
Aye.
Senator Ocasio.
Reservations.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Thank you, members. The measure passes, and thank you all for your participation. Thank you to all the testifiers. And I will adjourn the 1 o'clock agenda